Hey there, this is a recording I made specifically for my Facebook community. If you want to join it, it's in the link below. That being said, let's jump straight into it because today I want to cover the difference between Udemy and Skillshare and why I recommend beginners to start on Udemy and eventually create content that also fits Skillshare. I'll be honest, I don't really like pushing people theory, telling them like what actually works and what doesn't work. You have to experience it yourself. But what I will do in this video is share my experience, my stories, and then hopefully you can learn from them and not make the same mistakes that I did. Why I usually choose Udemy or Skillshare in the first place is when you're building courses, that's what these platforms are for, to put your courses on, you license your content to them and they share it with all of their clients or users. So it's kind of like YouTube, but in a paid format. And many people who want to go into passive income tend to look at these platforms first. There are many more, but these are kind of the main ones. And I always recommend to go for Udemy first because then you can kind of test out your content, make sure to get early reviews in. Because Skillshare, unfortunately, when you read their guidelines, and this is kind of hidden, but not really, they will definitely remind you when you post your first course. They have these really strict guidelines, like crazy strict. They say that it's to protect the users from instructors who aren't doing proper content, but the reality is that we've done it with multiple clients. I mean, I run an agency that helps course creators and corporates and build out educational content. So I've seen all the perspectives, and Skillshare just basically doesn't care about the instructors. And I don't say that lightly. They do kind of want to help good content come along so that they have content to share with their users. But lately they've been taking that angle where they want celebrities, they want big YouTubers to come on their platform and kind of like start creating really, really high quality content. So for beginners who want to kind of step into passive income, it becomes a real problem when you publish your first course and you get a strike right away, because that's how Skillshare deals with it. Udemy, on the other hand, when you publish something, you put it up for review, so you don't get strikes or blocks or any of those things. Somebody from the Udemy team, it's not always perfect, but they will reach out, tell you exactly what's wrong with the course. You get the chance to adjust it so that it can be published on the platform. Skillshare doesn't share any of these things. You basically need to publish and hope that you did everything right. And we've published so many courses on Skillshare for clients and ourselves. And I can tell you that even us, when we do everything perfect and we copy paste things from old courses, it still gets back with a block. And you're allowed 3 strikes on Skillshare. I think it was in a period of 5 or 6 months. And then basically they threaten to take down your account, which is, if you're making actual money on an account, you really don't want to risk. So we tend to stay at that 2 strike mark, and then we have to pause for a very long time. And so when you're kind of jumping into this licensing or passive income courses idea, you want to start without that hanging over your head. And I do recommend going to those platforms because in the beginning, when you build out courses, you really don't know where to start and how to sell it. If it's a good course in the first place, is there a product market fit? The usual way, when I started maybe like 10 years ago or something like that, when you would start these courses or any products, digital products online, you do what Tim Ferriss famously like coined in his book 4-Hour Workweek. You'd run a couple of Google ads or Facebook ads, like with a budget of like 50 or $100, and you quickly kind of see whether people want to get into on the pre-sale or they even are interested in the content that you produce. And based on that, you can actually build out your course and then start selling it. And this is the traditional way of doing it. Nowadays, when you don't have that, when you don't know how to run Facebook ads, quite complex, or Google ads, because there's like so many things happening. And I'm noticing like people are really struggling with this in my community. And so I tend to not recommend going down that path. The easier path is a proven path, which is you use hot marketplaces. I call them hot marketplaces because platforms like Udemy and Skillshare, specifically for courses, but there's also for services hot marketplaces. But in this video, we're focusing on Udemy and Skillshare as hot marketplaces. They have thousands of buyers every single day. On Skillshare, it's basically free. It's a 14-day free trial, and then people can just watch courses. And Skillshare gives you kind of royalties based on the watch time. So it's not like people buy your courses. They just watch your courses, they can sign up, and based on that watch time, you get paid out. Whereas with Udemy, they actually buy your courses. And so there are thousands of people doing this every single day. And so you get the benefit of not having to do sales or advertising, not even knowing those skills. You can publish your content and courses and kind of see where that takes you. Because if it takes you to a good place, you then know that you can put more of your budget into developing this course and then launching it through traditional advertising. Because let's be honest, the way Udemy and Skillshare do it, I mean, I see those ads all the time. They use all the major platforms and do proper advertising because they have great advertisers on their team. And so you basically use that knowledge for yourself. You create proper headlines, you create proper courses, but you make them mini, you make them short, and then you publish them first on Udemy. You validate which ones perform the best. You then double validate that on a platform like Skillshare. And then from there on, you go and you create your own content. You make a full course, a big course that you can properly invest your time in, and then start running ads with that. Now, there are some questions that I see pop up again in the Facebook group. The Facebook group is free. It's in the link down below. And in that Facebook group, the main thing that I keep noticing, I tend to do these one-on-one calls. It's like free passive income development workshops in return for a testimonial, kind of building the community still up. That's why I'm doing this for a testimonial. But what I notice in these calls is whenever I suggest this path, they need a couple of days to think about it, right? Because we all know from this 4-hour work week scenario, like the way marketing used to work or kind of still works is you run ads, you validate it through that, but you don't actually like run something. You can't sell something you don't have. So that was kind of the in-between step. And so my step is basically create a super small mini course and then just publish it on these hot marketplaces. And so that takes a couple of days to kind of like, get your head around. I notice for me that, it's very obvious. And what I notice is the most common mistake in those calls is the overthinking part. When I'm like sitting there and saying, just kind of do it, it's really simple, this is how you do it, it makes sense. But when you actually have to start doing it, there are all these thoughts that pop up. And people posted in the Facebook group, that's why I know about it. They're like, oh, maybe I should do like more of this and more of that, or what if people don't like it, or they're just all these thoughts that keep popping up. And I have to keep reminding everybody in this stage, when you don't know what you don't know, the biggest issue you might have, especially when you're very educated, is you just overthink things. You really don't want to overthink things. You just kind of want to start, like, it's like running a marathon. You're just not going to wake up one day and run, a whole marathon. You're going to start with like a quarter of a marathon or like even less. And then you're going to start building those things up. Same thing with this stuff. You don't always have the luxury. I mean, I definitely didn't have the luxury of just building a course for months on end. And then there was this one time where I actually did it. I built like a course for 6 months on end and nothing came out of it. And so when you don't have that luxury, you need to find different ways to validate your ideas. Now, the best way to validate an idea is, you can find someone who's more experienced in your niche. You can buy their time and their experience and they'll consult with you. But I find that a quite expensive endeavor. And usually that one consultation is not good enough for me. And so what I tend to recommend is, skip that and just create a very, very mini course. A good example that we have going on right now in the community is someone is a language teacher and for them, it was very clear that if they go to these hot marketplaces, they can validate whether there's enough sales. And specifically what I then said is check which level sells the most, because they have like A1 to C1 and stuff like that. And that tells you like how experienced people are. And what you tend to notice is, people want to learn a language and they want a simple way to do it. And so with that idea, for instance, Udemy and Skillshare could be a validator of which level performs the best. And what we actually found was that it wasn't specifically the courses that will be the biggest cash cow. The best one for that specific funnel is that you use membership groups. You provide proper accountability, because the number one complaint, especially like with all these people doing Duolingo, is there's no accountability. You can't really double check. You can't really like practice your spoken word. And so she has these like membership groups where you can actually do all of those things. And so that becomes a much more valuable product than a course, and yet it achieves similar things, to get passive income, if you structure it properly, of course. And so all of these things become super relevant, but I'm kind of going off course from the whole Udemy and Skillshare thing. So in short, this is how I use these hot marketplaces. Udemy is the first go-to if you kind of are starting out. Skillshare is a big risk just because they can block you, and so I don't recommend going for Skillshare right away. And I do recommend, going a little bit more mini courses on the Udemy side, figuring out which ones work the best, then posting it on Skillshare and seeing what the watch time tells you. Because if the watch time is really good on one specific course, you can keep niching down, and so at one point you'll have this one course that you can put on your own platform and start actually launching proper numbers that can go above, your first 100K or more. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.